I think that Davos is a place where leaders, people of so many diverse backgrounds come together, and that's what's really needed in the dialogue about AI today, right? We can't just be in the bubble of San Francisco and Mountain View, where everybody's just got this build culture and this, as we've talked before, this sort of work ethic theater. Like, we need to come to people who are interested in, human nature and societal good and building businesses with AI. And that's where we're gonna really learn, inspiration.
No, I think you're right. But literally the question. But how did you actually wind up here?
Literally get
Because here's a funny thing, man. And I don't know if you noticed this about Googlers.
Yeah.
A little bit shy or whatever, right? And so one of my frustrations is I've been doing this Gemini meetup now for like 2.5 years, and I've been telling my colleagues, listen, bro, Gemini meetup is across the street. There's like 300 users. You can literally just walk across the street and see what people think of the product. Yeah. And I think over the past 2.5 years, maybe, 2 people have taken me up on that. One of whom, and this is crazy, one of whom was literally like Peter Norvig or whatever, like the AI sort of godfather or whatever.
Yeah.
And the bro, like Peter Norvig, walked across the street.
Just quickly, does it conflict with free dinner, or is that maybe?
Oh, you know what? It's free MK snacks. That's the thing.
Oh, I see.
Oh,
okay.
yeah. Oh, I see. Free dinner. I don't know if they do dinner on Fridays because I think they want people to get out of there. Or whatever.
I see. No excuse.
So in fact, we did it on Fridays because we were like, you know what? It doesn't conflict with anything. But so the crazy thing is, Peter Norvig comes over, man. He gets thronged by like literally, I've never seen like people asking for autographs or whatever. Yeah. And funny thing, he actually had a great time. And I don't know why more Googlers don't take advantage of this. So it just feels like the fact that you're here, or the fact that we're here, it just seems a little bit rare. Like I don't.
100%. And I need to get down to one of those meetups. I hope I can set an example from a product perspective too. Like that's the
honestly,
thing. We should have product managers down there. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. And
that's
honestly,
their mandate.
That's why I'd love to have you. And part of like maybe you can just tell me what it's like. So sometimes when I deal with product managers. They have a hypothesis about what the users think, or what they have a hypothesis about what the users want.
Yeah.
And in some sense, like occasionally, that's a projection of what they want. And then I notice occasionally when we finally like productionize these things, somehow they're 180 degrees wrong or whatever. And actually, let me ask you, man, as a PM.
Yeah.
So how often do your hypotheses survive contact with users? Like how often are you on? How often are you off?
So honestly, one of the things I love about working on an applied research team is that we've got this balance of software engineers and also researchers. And researchers have this really strong bias for action. And so I'm perhaps not going to answer your question. Bias for action in terms of experimenting with a new research technique, or in the case of software engineers, bringing a new prototype to market, or putting in the hands of users. And I'll have to agree with you; those have been some of the most successful products.
Wow.
And so, my role in that case is really figuring out how do we get into the hands of the right users? How do we ensure that if the prototype is really not targeted at any particular specific niche, how can we maybe scope it down or scope it, add a few new features in order to have a more targeted product, and then really doing what you're doing, which is getting in the hands of users, getting their feedback, and then iterating. I think that's also in the world of AI. That's really going to be the new mode of operation, right?
No, that's true. That's true. But one thing I'm trying to figure out. So you mentioned get it to the right users. One thing I'm trying to figure out is like what if those users don't exist yet or whatever. So one of the craziest things to me about the past couple of years was like let's say the success of Notebook LM. Just insane or whatever, right? So they had this thing, and it was kind of for a while where basically you can upload your PDFs, no big deal. And then somebody just put a podcast thing in there, and the whole thing blew up. And it somehow created this demographic, or created this target audience that didn't seem to exist. I don't know if there were a certain class of people that uploaded stuff and listened to podcasts on the commute. So is it in this weird world that we're in this AI world, is it possible to conjure up new audiences from scratch? Or in some sense, or do you always have to think about these pre-existing? Do you always have to fit it into some pre-existing?
I think it really depends. It really depends on what the state of your team or your current product is. If you're in a situation where you're in a very competitive market, right? And I'm speaking in abstract terms here, just so we don't have to go into any specific product details. But if you're looking to really break out of this highly competitive market where, the gains are marginal, or you feel like there's a threat of substitutes, or there's a threat of, incumbent competition, right? And you don't want to remain idle. Then you can think about what you're saying is sort of like a blue ocean market, where you're creating an entirely new sort of persona of user, or market, where you're sometimes bringing together or blending multiple personas, multiple sort of product experiences, and finding something new or a new niche that really has a big market behind it.
Well,
and yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, man. So let me ask you this first of all. Has Gemini turned a corner? Like, in other words, are we in the up and up? Like, I feel like there's this rough patch, but how would you describe? Are we on kind of generally an upward trajectory, right? Like, is this like a Gemini moment or whatever? Let me ask you.
I don't know if I would comment on that, but I think that the upwards potential for AI continues to be strong. I think that the naysayers who are talking about a wall, I think that's short-sighted. I think that we're going to continue seeing, improvements at the compute level, right? We've got all this great research across the industry going into AI compute. We forget about that part. Into the data layer, into the algorithmic layer, and I think that that's how we're going to see this continuous sort of a curve of increasing intelligence.
So I think in general you're right, but like just take Nano Banana for instance or whatever. So and I think we're just talking about Gemini. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
So Gemini, like, we had 2.5, we had 3, like if as far as I can tell, like, people generally think positively about 3. Like, people say it's fantastic.
Yeah.
But there was this weird thing where, like, Nano Banana came along, and there was this some unanticipated viral moment.
Yeah.
And so I guess the question is, from like a PM's point of view, like, what do you even do with that? Like, how do you, like, is it possible to prepare for those viral moments? Like Nano Banana, it just seems to have this really wide appeal that like cuts across all these different demographics.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say by accident, but it was almost like just a crazy unexpected success. And let's say you have Notebook LM Nano Banana, can you even anticipate those things as a PM? Can you even plan for those things, or are they magical? Are they, how do you?
Yeah, I mean, you can do your best to understand the user and the market as deeply as possible. You can do your best to understand where the differentiation in the market is, where those magical COJs will be unlocked, and unlock these sort of viral products like the ones you're referring to. But I think once you get there, right, it's part of the process of just having that positive feedback loop, right?
But I guess I mean, at the end of the day, though, are we essentially playing these lottery tickets? Some of them hit, some of them don't.
Yeah.
And is it the case that the ones that hit in an unexpected way, or is it?
I'm actually interested, like, many, I think several products, especially in the AI space, are things that a few college kids or graduate students kind of have hacked up, right, in their dorm rooms, and that's really the power of AI right today. And so I'm interested in actually from an engineering perspective.
Yeah.
What's your view on things in terms of, like, how would you approach a situation like that?
I mean, I'll tell you the truth. It's a little bit crazy. So, just as an example, I've always there's a video game that I always wanted to make, and I've wanted to make this thing for like 10 years. I just never had time.
Yeah.
And I wanted this game where basically I could have this immersive, procedurally generated world, and I went like full day-night cycles, and I just like almost like literally, bro, like when I look at the Swiss Alps, like that was sort of my vision for this video game or whatever.
Yeah.
And somehow, like last week or the week before, in about 2 or 3 days, I vibe coded this thing into existence for like the Gemini meetup.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing was, God, it was so. The thing that strikes me about it is it was fun and effortless, and like I don't know. It was
Yeah.
just amazing. And the fact is, this thing which didn't exist now, like I basically had this ex nihilo moment. And I'm just thinking about that whole idea that we're going to see these like billion-dollar one-person startups.
Right.
And I just wonder whether, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think a very simple mental model, perhaps for entrepreneurs who are younger and don't have a tremendous amount of engineering experience or product sense, is to just think about what's the really cool shit that I'd want to have myself. What would I want to use as a product myself? And that kind of sounds like
no, it's
what
true, it's
happened
true.
with
Well,
Roblox,
and,
right?
I'll tell you the truth, man. There's one question I get again at the Gemini meetup. So these people ask me, hey, listen, how can I differentiate myself from like all the other people applying for internships or whatever? And I'll just say, listen, if I go on GitHub and I see that you've scratched your own itch in a bunch of different ways and you've created, like, honestly, like I'll hire you in a second or whatever. And typically, when I'm dealing with interns, like that's what I look for, sort of an active GitHub. And you're exactly right. Like somehow, and so let me ask you this, man. So on the one hand, people are saying, like this whole thing sort of democratizes the situation, right?
Yeah.
There's another funny thing though. So when I was creating this game and I was vibe coding this game, because I put in like my 10,000 hours, I had this intuition where I could sort of guide the LLM to like create this vision or whatever.
Yeah.
And the LLM, like in a bunch of different ways, like would stumble. I'd have to have this like singular-minded focus, and I'd have to be this guiding hand. And I'm trying to figure out, sort of without that 10,000 hours, like I don't know how I would have been able to do that with the LLM.
Yeah.
And so this is what I'm trying to figure out for like what you're talking about, like students and like people coming in. I don't know exactly how that works. Like if you haven't put in the time learning how to program, can you actually effectively use these things, man? Like
100%.
I don't know.
Or perhaps even on a more simple level, if people are using AI tools so much and consuming so much AI content that they lose a sense of agency. Are they going to even want to use tools to actually create things, right? Are they going to just be such, in this kind of consumer mindset, right? And you're absolutely right? If you can't, if you are using AI tools for your job, if there are less jobs in the job market, the next generation is going to just have less work experience and less opportunity to cut their teeth, and that's gonna I think widen the inequality that we see today, because you've got all these productive members of society who have literally 50 years of experience who are going to be warriors with these things.
That's right.
And then you've got this class of consumers who are just less engaged and never had the opportunity to build that experience and wealth.
No,
and
it's crazy. And I think the same thing goes for engineers, it goes for lawyers, it goes for anybody. And so you're saying in the hands of these experienced people, it's a superpower. And then in other words, it's, but no, I think that's a really tough thing.
Yeah.
And by the way, one of the things I ask some of these, like I go to like these high schools sometimes and I give talks. And one of the things I ask these students, I'm like, bro, listen, like, do you feel like you actually have the opportunity to put in like your 10,000? Do you feel like you have the opportunity to gain competence in any of these things? And the message I get again and again is like, if I slow down the pace of if I actually do my homework and I don't sort of outsource it to the LLMs, there's about 100 other people that will, and they'll sort of run circles around me.
Exactly.
I don't really have time to stop. So I don't know. Like,
and that's where the incentive structure like totally breaks down. So we can, unless it's a sort of top-down approach where, as a society, an educational system, we decide, hey, we're going back for, I think, some percentage of classwork, we're going back to pen on paper and blue books, right, and no AI assistance, and just teaching those fundamental ability to wrestle with ideas. And then on the other hand, ensuring that you're teaching kids how to use AI tools, not just for consumption, but for creation so that they can build the next Fortune 500 company. Right?
I mean, here's what I was trying to figure out, man. And so let's say, like, take like Oxford or take Oxbridge or whatever. They have this like tutor system, and it is you have this tutor that actually spends time with you, sort of guiding you or whatever, honing you. And one of the questions that I had was, can LLM step in this tutor thing and sort of guide people? But somebody was telling me that these tutors, when they have a relationship with you, they have an exceptional amount of EQ where they can sort of figure out exactly what you need at that time to like guide you towards this goal. And I guess the question is, man, do you think LLMs could ever step in that role Like in other words, because the one thing about the tutor system is that like it's difficult to scale because you actually need tutors or whatever, right?
Right.
And I mean, do you think LLMs can actually step in and take that, or do you think that's still one of these fundamental like human to human type of things?
Yeah, you have a really good point. I think on one hand, to answer it in a more literal sense, we're not at the point where AI can certainly feel emotion, but also express emotion in sort of a genuine human way, or empathize rather with the user in a genuine way. I don't know if we're quite there yet. And so I would say, like, literally now, right, an AI could not step in and fill that role that let's say an Oxbridge tutor could. And additionally, in the future, I think there is some legitimate concern around AI tutors and bias, especially when these adaptive learning mechanisms, right, are going to kind of reinforce bias, right? Because
just by mirroring the students.
Exactly, mirroring the weaknesses of the student, and never thinking out of distribution, right? Never challenging them with a truly creative idea that perhaps is not something that can simply be broken down to a sampled, probability of distribution. See what I'm saying?
And so is it the LLM's job to push back, to resist to a certain extent?
Yeah.
Because here's a funny thing. I did this experiment a couple weeks ago at the meetup where I had this like Socratic dialogue system. So I had people basically learn this material. And I realized like after 20 to 30 minutes, man, people couldn't take it anymore. And it turns out that being like peppered with questions, it's exhausting, right?
Yeah.
And so I wonder if we do something like that, whether we have to figure out like how to make it palatable. Because honestly, man, dealing with like a resistant LLM, it's exhausting and kind of irritating, man.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's something we have to figure out. But anyway, James, it's kind of amazing, man. It's kind of amazing being here with you, man. And
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
thanks so much.